Red looked at the clock on the wall. 4 p.m. She had been at the office for a couple of hours. There was a serenity in the air that she needed after the violent act that she committed earlier. Red's emotions went from hot to cold. She was like a Black Panther. Back her up in a corner and she'd come out clawing, not caring who would be hurt in the process. She thought back to her unborn child and how it was taken away from her at the hands of another person. Did my child deserve to die? No. Does Zeke deserve to die? She challenged herself. He's just as much as a person as my baby was. Red thought about it, battling her conscience, but her self-absorption won out. Hell yeah, she thought. That nigga deserves whatever he got coming to him. He could jeopardize my relationship with Q. I don't know who he thought he was fucking with. I don't know who he thought he was fucking with, but I put a stop to anyone who dares to stand in the way. Her mind flashed to Bacon. Let me see something, she said out loud, firing up her Apple laptop computer. Over the last few days, she had been hearing about Bacon's name on the streets, but nobody had seen him. She had to see for herself if he was truly out. She typed in www.bob.gov and then entered his required information and waited for the results to display. God damn it, she said out loud. There was a release date. There was a date by his name as well as the word released. So he wasn't out through an escape. Somehow he had beat his case. She shook her head ruefully. Red remembered her Red remembered the book, and her thoughts went to Catfish. She pulled out a pen and paper and began to write. Catfish, we need to talk. Please put me on your visitor list so I can come see you. I want to squash some things before they get out of hand. Red. Red addressed the envelope with the information that she received from the website and decided to take it to the post office once she left. Red thought of Q and what her life would be like with him out of the game. She scowled, and then she thought of the other people who had done her wrong. The ones who called themselves her friends. I got something for Kara, sending that damn letter to Bacon. Terry's dumbass still owe me money, and Sasha? Red shook her head thinking of Sasha and Blue together. You crossed the ultimate line. The thought of 3 women and what they had done to her angered Red even more. She looked to her right and saw Gloria's Rolodex of clients. She remembered how Gloria started in the business. I built my company with one client. That client later referred to me to another client and then another. Red had truly learned a legal hustle, but she needed something to jumpstart her new venture. Finally, she came up with an idea. She decided to host an open house. Feeling better about everything, Red began to map out her plans. She had tons to do and very little time to do it. Red made plans to contact an advertising agency to help with the introduction of Gomez Realty. She would also place ads in the upscale magazines to gain her clientele. She knew the business. She just had to get out there and start working again. One thing she learned while in Mexico was how to be happy with what you have now. Red realized that although she didn't have what she was accustomed to at first, the fly clothes, the expensive car, the money, and the man, she had to make it by the sweat of her brow. In her heart, she was truly ready to turn her life around, to be with Q. But somehow she knew that all of her dirtiness wouldn't disappear. A strange tone rang from her cell phone. She grabbed it and looked at the caller ID. Who in the fuck is calling me private? Red hated that. Though she wasn't one to answer her phone if the person wouldn't display their number. She answered it anyways. Hello? Hello? Nobody said anything. Red hung up, and then, just then, she looked up and saw a car. A BMW that looked like her old car. The one that Bacon bought her. Almost instantly, her cell phone rang again. Damn, who is it this time? She looked at the caller ID and saw unknown. What? She yelled into the phone. To her surprise, it turned out to be a collect call from Terry. Tempted to hang up, she decided to fuck with Terry. So she pushed 5 and accepted the call. Bitch, you got some clothes for me? Terry quipped, in hopes that Red wouldn't go off on her after she heard her voice. I ain't got nothing that goes with county colors, Red replied coldly. Damn, Red, you can't even at least be civil to a bitch? Can you at least be civil to a bitch? What do you want, Terry? I'm in the middle of something. I was just calling, you know? Terry realized it was a mistake to call Red, but she continued. She hoped their longtime friendship would mean something to Red. Since I've been in here, I had a lot of time to think, and I learned something about myself. Terry was excited about the breakthrough that she had made and wanted to share it with somebody, even if it was with Red. And I suppose you're gonna tell me what it is, huh? Red asked sarcastically. Ignoring Red's attitude, Terry spoke. I learned that I am responsible for my own actions. Nobody controls what I do, except for me. Mm. Red grunted. You know that was fucked up what you did, right? Yeah, I know. Terry confirmed. The baby didn't. Baby? I ain't talking about no damn baby. Red yelled. That was fucked up, but I'm talking about you acting like you was in the Wild Wild West at my goddamn house. You still owe me for that shit. Red, you still stuck on that? Terry stopped. Yeah, you still owe me. What was the deal? 2,000 and your truck? Terry couldn't believe her ears. She was behind bars until God only knew when, and all Red could think about was her house. You know what, Red? I don't know why the hell I called you. You only care about yourself. You ain't know? Red replied coldly. Now, are we gonna work this out, or should the authorities get a little tape in the mail? You wanna hear it? It's right here. Red lied. Ooh, Red, I can't stand you. Terry remembered the tape Red had with her confession that she shot at Mikkel and Kara. You'll never change. You still dirty. You're right, Red admitted proudly. Terry hung up. If it weren't for Red not knowing what was up with her house, she would have gone there to get the tape. She loved fucking with Terry. Red smiled at her cell phone call. She smiled at her cell phone and turned.
Oh my God, Zeke.
Q yells. He had returned to the loft and found his friend lying on the floor with white foam spewing from his mouth. Q looked around the living room and noticed that the picture frames were broken and lying on the floor. Immediately, he dialed 911.
Operator, I need an ambulance. I found my friend passed on the floor. He doesn't look too good.
Is he breathing? The operator asked.
I don't know, let me check.
Q knelt over his boyhood friend and placed his finger under his nose. He felt faint but sporadic air coming from his nostrils.
Yeah, he's still breathing, barely.
Hold on. Within minutes, 3 paramedics came barreling through the door with a stretcher and large black medical bags. Seconds later, Zeke had an oxygen mask over his nose, mouth, and an IV coming out of his left arm. The 3 men lifted Zeke's motionless body onto the stretcher and whisked him onto the ambulance. Q tried to follow the paramedics, but was stopped by 2 law enforcement officers.
Excuse me, Mr. Carter? Yeah, we'd like to ask you a few questions about what happened here. I'm Officer McDonald, and this is my partner, Officer Thomas. Look, can we do this later? That's my boy, and this will only take a minute.
Officer McDonald assured Q, cutting him off. Q noticed the skinny young black officer, Officer Thomas, looking around the loft. Q eyed him cautiously.
Can you tell me what happened?
I
don't know.
Q answered truthfully.
I just came home and he was there on the floor with his stuff coming out his mouth, barely breathing. What'd you do when you found him?
Q looked at him like he was crazy.
I called 911. What?
He threw his hands up in the air and twisted his mouth in disgust.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carter.
Officer McDonald said.
These are just standard questions. Where were you? Where was I when?
Q snapped.
I was here when I called. No, where were you? Well, Ezekiel Morrison wasn't at your home. I had some runs to make. Some runs? Yeah. Look, man, I don't have time for this. My doorman saw me leave, and he saw me when I came back.
The two looked at each other as if in a Mexican standoff. Officer Thomas saw the tension and walked over to them.
There's nothing here.
He told his partner.
Mr. Carter, if we need anything else, we'll be in touch. Sorry for any inconveniences.
The officers left and Q followed right behind them. Heading to Scott Memorial Hospital en route, he called Red's cell phone, but her voicemail picked up immediately. He left a message telling her that he was going to be in the hospital. Q needed to talk to someone, and he knew just who to call. He drove feverishly to get to the hospital, all the while praying that his boy wouldn't die. Chas greeted Q at the entrance, and they made their way to the emergency waiting area. Q was glad that she was there for him, and she was glad that Q called her. Chas comforted him while they waited for Zeke's prognosis. Blue looked over at Sasha as she slept. He didn't want to wake her up because she had to put in a lot of work over the last few days. While he was in New York handling business, she was traveling from Jersey to Pennsylvania, making sure that his money was right. With her, it was like having Blue in two places at the same time. However, nobody would suspect Sasha to be his eyes and ears. Her knowledge of the drug game and her loyalty to him was more than he had expected. Just hours ago, he was trying to kill her with his dick. She held her own, and with every stroke he gave, her pussy challenged him to continue to bring it on. Before that, Blue had been waiting for Sasha to return from New Jersey. She was running late. All sorts of thoughts flooded her mind. Did she get popped? Nah, I would have heard about it by now. Damn, I know that she don't call herself taking my shit and running with it. About 30 minutes later, Sasha walked through the door. Where the fuck you been?
Where the fuck you been?
Blue yelled at her. Damn, Nella, chill. Sasha had to pee. She slid the large black purse that was on her shoulder to the floor. She held her crotch and trotted off to the bathroom. She almost peed on herself before her bottom hit the toilet seat. Oh my god, you guys, my bad. After finishing her business, she washed her hands and then went back to the hallway to deal with Blue.
Now what the hell is your problem? You're late. Where's my shit?
He barked. You know what? Sasha said, walking over to the bag that she dropped. I'm tired of you acting like I'm gonna do some shit with your money. Yeah. Boy. She reached in and threw 4 large bundles of money at him, one hitting him upside the head.
Boy.
Yeah, boy. That's what you acting like. Like someone gonna take your shit. When are you gonna realize that I got your back? Sasha now had tears in her eyes. She felt like no matter how hard she tried to show him that she was true, Blue always did something to fuck it up. Blue knew that she was down for him, but he just couldn't trust a female. Sasha was no exception, or so he thought.
Damn, Ma, don't cry on me and shit.
He said when he saw a tear fall from her eyes onto her beautiful dark brown skin.
I hate when you do that.
Blue walked up to her and wiped away her tears.
You know, it's just hard for me in my line of work to be able to trust someone, you know?
Sasha turned to walk away, but Blue grabbed her arm. What the fuck you want now? She was pissed at him. Blue backed her up forcefully against the wall, and he began kissing her roughly. Sasha reciprocated not only with kisses, but small bites. Blue roughly puts his hands under her blouse and ripped it off. Sasha couldn't wait for his hands to touch her breast. She reached back and unhooked her bra, letting her breasts free. Blue grabbed them forcefully, and began sucking on them, on one and then the other. She panted. Her breasts were tender, but his hot mouth on the nipples made every nerve in her body stand up. Blue tugged at Sasha's pants. She eased her way out of them, but she stood before him only in her panties. He picked her up and carried her into the bedroom. She needed some type of leverage with what he was going to do with her. She bounced once, and when he tossed her on the bed, quickly undressing, Blue hopped on the bed, and with his right hand moved her leg as far as it could go, and entered her forcefully. 1 stroke, 2 strokes.
Damn, Ma, this shit.
He grunted as he tried to knock her back out. The two fucked like wild animals, clawing, biting, pulling at each other. The heightened sensations made them climax repeatedly. Although Blue had schooled Red, Sasha had schooled him that seasoned pussy didn't have to be trained. And she was right. Once more, she had proven herself, and Blue was definitely feeling her. Looking at Sasha sleep soundly, he remembered the reason why he hooked up with her in the first place. Even though she called him, she had been trying to find a way to get back, He had been trying to find a way to get back to her. There was a nice bounty on her head. At first, he thought it would be simple, but now he realized the money that he offered to bring her, back to Catfish, dead or alive, meant nothing. He had to protect her, and he would. That's what he would do at all costs. The sound of the running water from the shower awakened Sasha. She surprised him with her presence as she eased into the shower to share with him, but it would have to wait till later. She knew that they were headed back to Detroit, and he had a new connect and a new product, black tar, and it was selling like crazy, but they wouldn't be leaving until she got hers again. Chapter 20.
Baby,
Mikhail yelled out when he entered the apartment.
you home?
There was no answer. Enjoying the peace for however long he could, he stripped down to his boxers and stretched out on the bed. He thought about Terry and everything that was revealed during their conversation. Then he began to daydream about the last time they had sex. Mikhail stepped out of the shower and Terry stood there with her ass exposed. He rejected her advances at first, but he hadn't gotten his nut off in several weeks, so the blood left his brain and went to his other head. He watched in the mirror as she deep-throated him. Terry was a pro with her head game. He nutted in her mouth, and then he pulled out slightly and continued nutting on the side of her face. He ripped Terry's shirt from her body, bent her over the sink, and proceeded to bang her back out, looking for nut number 2. The memory was all too real. 3 hours later, Mikhail awakened, fully rested. He looked down at his sheets and saw the mess that he had made. He jacked off again to the memory of his and Terry's last encounter. He'd been doing that a lot lately. Immediately, he began to snatch the sheets off. Just as he threw the sheets into the washing machine, he started hearing the suds sloshing about. He heard the front door slam. He rushed into the living room, feeling guilty for pleasuring himself at the thought of Terry in the bed that he and Kara shared. It was Kara, but she didn't have the baby with her.
Hey, baby.
He said cheerfully. He noticed that she looked disheveled.
Where's the baby?
In the hospital.
The hospital?
Yeah, the babysitter called and said he was unresponsive when she tried to wake him up from his nap. And when she picked him up, he started shaking really bad.
What?
Mikhail yelled. Mikhail, they say that he has some type of disorder. Kara admitted through tears. I tried to call you earlier from the emergency room, but you didn't answer your phone. Mikhail cringed, remembering the calls that he ignored when he was talking to Terry earlier. He began to pace the floor.
Man.
Suddenly, he rushed to the bedroom, and began to put his clothes on. Kara followed him. What? She paused, looking at the stripped bed. What happened here, Mikhail? He continued to put his clothes on. Did you have another woman over? Mikhail looked at her like she lost her mind. Where are you going?
To the hospital to see my son.
What about me, Mikhail?
He's a baby, Kara. He needs his parent. Come on.
You didn't think about that when I was calling you earlier. He only had his mother then. Kara spat. You know what? This is all your fault. Transfixed with shock, Mikhail stared at Kara as though seeing her for the first time.
My fault?
Yeah, yours. If you would have been man enough to handle your business when I first told you that I was pregnant, none of this would have happened.
Kara, don't start. This ain't the time.
Mikhail warned as he began to step into his Timbs. Terry would have had enough time to get used to y'all being broken up. So because of you, Kara pointed her finger in his chest. She reacted. Now my child has this thing. Mikhail, sick of the constant barbs, grabbed the cap and his keys and headed toward the front door. Where are you going? She yelled behind him.
Out.
Mikhail slammed the door, causing it to leap on its hinges, and left Kara in the apartment in tears. Mikhail drove around for what seemed like hours. He ended up at the Scott Memorial. His heart ached at the thought of his son not being perfectly healthy. This is all your fault, he remembered Kara saying to him. With a tear in his eyes, he exited his truck. He thought,
she right. If I had stopped the shit before it got out of hand, none of us would be in this situation.
Jogging through the sliding glass doors of the hospital, he received directions to his son's location in the pediatric neurology unit from the information desk. The elevator ride to the 6th floor was the longest ride he had ever taken. As the elevator chimed to alert him that he was on his desired floor, he heaved a deep breath and scurried out in search for his son. Following the directions for the room number, he finally arrived and found the door partially open. He heard voices and hesitated for a moment before walking in. He found several medical personnel examining Lil Mikkel.
What happened? What's happening?
He asked. Mr. Chambers, I presume? The doctor asked. Mikkel nodded. Your son had a mini seizure earlier, but he stabilized. He sure is a trooper. Mikkel smiled at that assessment. At any rate, we've called in the pediatric neurology specialist from Johns Hopkins. They should be here in a couple of days.
Thank you.
Mikkel responded as he stepped closer to the crib and looked at his namesake.
Can you explain why this happened?
The doctor cast Mikkel a strange look. Mikkel wondered why the doctor was looking at him in such a puzzled manner. He gave the nurse some orders and led Mikkel to another room. Mr. Chambers, do you know why your son was brought into the emergency room today? Mr. Chambers, do you know why your son was brought into the emergency room today?
I was told he was unresponsive and started shaking real bad.
Is that all?
Look, what's wrong with my son? Tell me what happened and how we could fix this.
Mr. Chambers, your son has fetal alcohol syndrome, the doctor explained.
Fetal who?
Mikkel barked repeated blankly. Fetal alcohol syndrome. Early in your wife's pregnancy, she exposed the unborn child to large amounts of alcohol and narcotics.
Narcotics?
Mikkel yelled. He had never known Kara to do any type of drugs. The drinking was definitely a possibility because oftentimes they drank before they fucked.
Kara doesn't.
Mr. Chambers, the doctor interrupted. You can take that up with your wife later, but the concern now is with your son. Mrs. Chambers mentioned that you are the primary caregiver of your son. Is that true?
Yeah.
Mikkel tried to be proud of this fact, but he didn't think the doctor thought otherwise. Didn't you see anything that would make you question your son's development? Flashbacks flooded Mikkel's mind. The look in the swing, his inability to hold his head up without support, the constant cries when he was not held tightly. Mikkel didn't equate these things to a specific problem. He thought it was just typical behavior for babies. He was a proud father and was just glad to have his son around. Now Mikkel was furious. Fetal alcohol syndrome was totally preventable. It was senseless abuse of an unborn child he was surprised that Kara, who he thought was proud of her pregnancy from the beginning, would have done something so stupid.
So, doctor,
Mikkel said hesitantly.
Are seizures common with this fetal alcohol syndrome, or could they be caused by something else?
Something else like what?
Like being dropped.
Dropped? When was he dropped? The doctor pulled out a pad and began taking notes. Mikkel sighed. Kara obviously hadn't told him of the incident. After Mikkel explained everything, the doctor finished his note-taking. Oh, it was a guy. Finished his note-taking and closed the pad and spoke.
Well, Mr. Chambers, at this stage, the fall would have only aggravated the condition, but this would have happened regardless. I'm sorry to say your son won't be normal in the clinical sense, but with help and training and support groups, you and your wife will be able to raise him in a normal environment.
The doctor stopped. He was being paged.
I have to go, but you may go see your son. He's a sweet child.
Mikkel followed the doctor out and walked back to Lil Mikkel's hospital room.
She knew. Wife? Why he keep referring to Kara as my wife? Damn, I wonder what else she telling them, but not telling me.
He walked over to the crib, and it looked like a big cage. Would you like to hold your son? The nurse asked as she changed the IV bag.
Yeah.
Mikkel answered and sat in the oversized rocker next to the crib. The nurse showed him how to push the button and call for help if he needed it, as she placed the baby in his arms and then left. Mikkel looked down at his son, who was now wide awake. His son looked up at him with his big doe eyes and smiled.
Everything will be okay, little man. Daddy's here.
I know this Nilla ain't. Foxy yelled and slammed the phone down, trying to avoid me. She hadn't heard from him since he left that night and he tried to kill Q and Red. She didn't want to admit it, but she had actually started to care for him because he fucked her so well. This Nilla better be somewhere near death, she said as she sucked her teeth. You don't get none of this and just bounce. Nightfall came and Bacon sat on outside of Foxy's apartment. She had been calling him for some time now, but he couldn't bring himself to go back over there until now. He was angry that she could have possibly been fucking cute too, but tonight he needed to get up in some pussy. The stuck-up hoes that Maurice had running through the crib reminded him too much of Red. Gold diggers. He needed some appreciative pussy. Bacon walked up to Foxy's door and tapped. No answer. He tapped again. Who is it? A groggy female voice answered. He didn't speak, just tapped again. This time, Foxy flung the door open, but the first thing Bacon saw was the baseball bat. He smiled. What do you want? Foxy snapped.
You gonna keep a brother out here waiting?
Bacon said. I ain't got time for no games, Foxy confirmed. Now, I don't know who the fuck you are, so you best step off. Bacon couldn't believe Foxy didn't recognize him.
I got something you know very well,
he said, toying with her. Disgusted, Foxy attempted to close the door, but Bacon stopped her.
Foxy, it's me, Bacon.
He had to play his hand because he wanted to fuck. And if Foxy closed the door on him, that would be it. She looked at him closely. What? I can't. She saw the truth, and then she snapped. You know what? Fuck you, motherfucker. I ain't heard from you since when? Bacon attempted to calm her down and then follow her in the house. It wasn't long before Foxy realized that it was truly indeed Bacon. He didn't waste any time getting up in her. Foxy played hard to get as long as she could, but she needed him. Afterward, Foxy laid on Bacon's chest and stroked her sweat-drenched weave. Anyone been up
in my shit since I've been gone?
He asked. Yo shit? Ha! Last time I remember, this belonged to Miss Foxy. You just the guest up in here. Bacon laughed. He knew that he couldn't claim anything, especially when he wasn't considering Foxy for wifey.
What you know good?
He inquired. Did you think about what I said last time? Foxy asked, ignoring his question.
What?
Pursuing the second book deal. Bacon began stroking his cum-drained dick.
Yeah, actually, I got a second book deal, but I need a favor from you.
Bacon's erection prevented him from telling Foxy what he needed her to do because he wanted to fuck again. Hours later, Bacon sat on the side of the bed trying to get up. You heard from Red? Foxy asked.
Nah, I ain't fucking with that bitch.
I heard that hoe started her own real estate business and she's gonna have an open house soon. Word has it, she doesn't have a lot of money, so she may list your house again.
What about that Nilla Q?
Bacon inquired. He's keeping time with someone else, but I know he's still with Red. I think this woman and him have some type of history.
What about you and Q?
Me and Q? Foxy sucked her teeth. Nothing. We go way back. We just friends. Don't worry, baby. This is all yours. Before Bacon left for the night, Foxy agreed to do what he had asked. Chapter 21.